In the early 1900s, the first Chinese immigrants arrived in Mexico, helping build the country and its railroads. Today, tens of thousands of Chinese call it home. But their success was preceded by turbulence and hardship. Correspondent Franc Contreras introduced us to a thriving community determined to retain its identity and culture.
Chinese presence in Mexico goes back generations. They know the ancient lion dance brought here by their ancestors is a Chinese way of asking for and receiving life's abundance. Chinese families in Mexico, like the one Ignacio Chu belongs to, are digging deep into the history of how they came to this country. Chu's uncle proudly traces the family lineage back 23 generations to the Song dynasty.
I'm a Mexican like any other, but with the distinction that my roots are in the ancient culture of the Chinese.
Like most other world cities, the Mexican capital has its own Chinatown, complete with restaurants and stores that draw crowds of people. Mexican shoppers are eager to get their hands on merchandise from all across China, especially this item here, which represents the Year of the Serpent, Chinese New Year. Recently arrived Chinese immigrants can now get their favorite regional dishes in parts of the Mexican capital, which until recently had almost no contact with Chinese culture. Authentic Chinese food like this from northern China is becoming increasingly common in neighborhoods throughout the Mexican capital as the Chinese immigrant community here continues to grow. In one Mexico City neighborhood called Viaducto Piedad, Chinese immigrants have established their own religious and cultural centers. Anthropologist Mónica Cinco visits this group frequently to study how they're making the transition to life in this increasingly diverse metropolis. Her father was born in China, but his father was Chinese and his mother was Mexican. By spending time with him, she learns about what he went through as a Chinese immigrant coming to Mexico.
What
did they do? They detained Chinese people wherever they found them. State and local officials would come out to track down the Chinese community to round them up. They'd pile them onto a truck, and at night, by the border between Nogales, Arizona, and Mexico, they'd expel them at gunpoint.
It's part of Mexico's history that remains largely unknown.
It moves me very much because this has been many people's story who had a very difficult time and in the end came out ahead.
Her little daughter, Maria Sofia, is growing up with the knowledge that she has two cultures. She's reminded that even this Mexican tradition has its roots in China.
I would like Maria Sofia to go to a preschool where she will learn Mandarin, and we plan to pass summers in China so that she can become familiar with the language, with the customs, because it's something that I'd like her to preserve. I want her to keep those Chinese roots.
By taking these steps, Mónica Cinco hopes that her daughter, Maria Sofia, will grow up in Mexico and maintain a strong connection to the Chinese part of her identity.